example of how spiritually things about sending good vibrations of healing, of love to the rivers that you were saying. Many people would think that it is a fancy idea. Would it really make a difference? What is your take on that?
Try it. Try it and see if it makes a difference.
David, welcome to the show.
Nice to be back.
When we talk about the personal or individual connection to the environment, many people feel that yes, there is a genuine connection, but we also see there is a big disconnect. Maybe it is the face of modernity. Maybe our lifestyles have become too fast-paced, if I must say. There is a disconnect between how we see nature today. Most of us, the younger ones of course, would see nature on their screens, cell phone screens, or computer screens, or documentaries on the television screens. And many of us, over the past 30 years, have moved to cities. And this is something which is happening all around the globe. I'm not saying that there is anything wrong with the cities, but for the better quality of life, or for worse, we have made that change. And suddenly today we have come to this realization that we were better off in the old days than we are today, because the levels of pollution are going up in cities, and there are a lot of health issues that have come up with the pollution levels, water or air or whatever. So these changes are something which are evident, but it took us some time to get here to realize that, oh, this is what has really caused it. And yet, we are not really committed to make a change or to go back to where we were. Why do you think that this appears as a challenge to us? Because you work with communities. There is ancient wisdom. There is also wisdom of the communities. People collectively have a thing called collective intelligence. Are we not listening to that intelligence, or are we just trying to be ignorant, or are we making that choice difficult for ourselves?
It's a good question. I think there is that ancient wisdom. I think people are making those choices, perhaps in more places than we know. And I think very often when people think personally of making a change, they believe it's going to be difficult, so they don't try to make the change. But so many people that you talk to who have made the change will tell you it was much easier than I thought.
Yeah.
So it's taking that first step and making the change that I think really makes a difference. And that's where we have to start. That's all we can do is change from ourselves. Many of us in different ways in different parts of the world have been inspired by Gandhi. And Gandhi didn't talk about changing the world. He talked about changing ourselves first, changing within, and then seeing where that takes us. And we do the global analysis, we do the political analysis, we do the environmental and the economic analysis. Yes, all of those things are important, but we have to take the first step ourselves. And I think when we do that, it can make a world of difference. And you talked about the difference between urban and rural youth and that change in lifestyles. How can we bring those people back together, those communities back together to learn from each other, rural and urban youth together? And how can people recreate a loving, a caring relationship with nature? Recognize themselves as stewards of nature. Recognize their food and their water that gives them sustenance comes from nature, and that they have that relationship and they have to care for it. So many people that try to find peace or are experimenting with meditation or something, they'll say, I picture myself in a place in nature with the water falling and the birds chirping. And many people do that. because I think deep in who we are as spiritual beings, we realize that we have a resonance with the natural world, and when we rediscover that, magic can happen. So we have to consciously make that choice to remake that connection with the natural world.
When you say that we should remake that connection, we would come to the remaking of connection later, but why do you think that connection broke off in the first place? What went wrong? What did we miss out on? We've been drinking the same water, we're wanting the same food. Everybody likes fresh fruits. Everybody wants something. Everybody would like to go to a beach or go hike a mountain, go on vacation. Everybody does that, but we did not miss out on anything. Is there something that we really did not pay attention to?
I think decisions began to be made at higher and higher structural levels within society, so that people didn't realize the decisions they were making were changing the lives of individual people, the relationships of individual people, in the strive for efficiency and economic effectiveness and profit and the bottom line margins, decisions that were made in the absence of recognizing the values that would affect in people's lives, and specifically the relationship with the natural world. If I can give one example from Canada, a community I know of, indigenous community, Adivasi-like community, has been fighting against a natural gas plant that is trying to come in to exploit the resources in their area and will create massive pollution in the rivers of their area. And I know an indigenous grandmother that is leading the legal, the policy sort of changes to stop that destruction from happening. But she's also a leader in their spiritual traditions. And she says just as important as the fight and the advocacy work is giving prayers to the water. Spending time, sending energy to heal the water, to realize that there's a relationship with us as human beings with the water of the world, and we need to have that respect. We need to live simply. We need to respect the elements that give us sustenance, and make that a big part of our lives, more than thinking we have to change and break a habit and do something else. Those things will take care of themselves. They're easy. But find a more encompassing vision of how are we going to express our love for the future, for the plants and the animals and the bees and the insects, and the beauty of what is the environment that gives these bodies our lives.
Interestingly, when you say this, I see there existed a connection before. If I had to recollect an incident from my childhood when we were young, whenever we would travel and if the train would pass over a bridge, our grandparents would give us a coin. They would say, "Make a wish." And we did not know what should we wish for. And they would say, "Make a wish and ask the river that wherever she flows, she should produce so much of food that nobody should go hungry."
Very nice.
And we would always throw this coin into the river and we would make this wish. But we did not understand that what this connection is, because we were not living close to the river, so we would cross the river only once in a while. But even if it would happen maybe once in a year or twice in a year, we would have that connect. The moment we would realize that, oh, now there is a river coming, we would go and ask for a coin and we would know what we are going to wish for. So there was a connect, and of course then there was the disconnect. And like you said, to make that connection again, it is easy than to think about choices and just to reconnect. But given the circumstances of how our lives have been, how it has become now, it is difficult to make that connection together. Because maybe if I have a job which is in the city, I go to work, I work days a week from 9 till evening 7 or 8. By the time I come back, maybe I'm just living my life over the weekends, and my connection to nature only happens over the long sought vacation. But otherwise, there is a disconnect. How would I connect?
I mean, you mentioned earlier, people looking at their cell phones and living their lives through the cell phones. We can make choices, I think, about what we look at on those cell phones. We can make choices about, do we only look at the cell phones and pass by the one little park that might be in our area? We make choices about looking at the cell phones or trying to grow some of our own herbs and plants, even on a very tiny patio space we have at our home. We make choices about what we do and how we do it, and it's those small choices, I think, that can make a difference of reconnecting with the sacredness of the natural world, which I think is so important. I was saying earlier, I love the name of this show, Shanti, because it's about a peaceful relationship. I also think a loving relationship with the ecosystem, with this planet Gaia we have. And I think if we spend our energy on that big thing, expanding our hearts to do that big thing, the little things will take care of themselves. If we keep naming all the obstacles and all the things that stop us and all the things that disconnect us, it's going to be very, very difficult to break down each of those individual things. But if we dare to vision another way to look at our relationship with each other, with ourselves, and with the world we live within, the environment we live within, I think the changes can happen, and we're going to get extra energy from other people and other energies of the world that are going to support us in doing that.
Okay. You were saying about something about having this personal commitment to looking at the nature in a different way. If I have love and peace and these values that really matter, and if I really look at nature with that connect, then it would be easier. But if I want to make that connect, rightly put, you said that there is this choice. Should I go for a walk in the park, or should I spend my time watching an episode of a favorite TV show? It's my choice totally. But to make that choice, it does not mean that I'm disrespecting nature. I'm not making that choice, but I sometimes feel that it is what I am given. Going to a park takes an effort, but sitting here and just browsing something on the internet and watching an episode which might take 30 minutes or half an hour, it's easy. It is in the comfort of my own room. So what you're asking me to do is to connect, means that it requires an extra effort, and I might not be really comfortable doing that. It's not because I don't want it, it's just that it is just a little bit of extra effort. And like you said, there has to be something that should motivate you to do something. You also shared about how this walk came through, and it really motivated you to do something. Walk 100 kilometers. If you would ask somebody in the audience, nobody would say, yeah, I would take that up. No, that would not motivate me, or that would inspire me. So what really inspires, what has been your inspiration personally to make a commitment first, to bring about a personal change, and then to motivate others to bring about a change themselves too?
I think it's about an inspiration of others in much more difficult circumstances than I've ever been in. I grew up in Canada in a middle-class household, so I had many privileges in my life growing up. But because of the way I was brought up, I was also brought up to recognize others, the beauty of that diversity, but also the challenges that those people experience because of the structures and systems of the society we live in. And, again, I'm reminded of Gandhi and his quote, every step you take, every effort you make, think about the most marginalized or impoverished, I don't remember the quote exactly, but think about the most impoverished or marginalized people you know, and how is your action going to affect or influence that person. And I think that perspective of looking at ourselves in the mirror and making those changes, looking at others around us and what can we do to influence them in a positive way, and looking at other living beings and the ecosystem in another way, and making those choices stops being an effort and becomes a joy and something that gives you more energy in your life. And that's what I've been blessed with around my journey, that making those choices that bring positive energy to others, you receive 1,000-fold back yourself by doing for others. And all you have to do is try and realize what a difference it makes. And it no longer becomes an effort. It becomes easy to do.
To just make things easier for other people. There was also a term that you used about how cultures have seen their relationship with nature. Maybe you were giving an example of how spiritually things about sending good vibrations of healing, of love to the rivers that you were saying. Many people would think that it is a fancy idea. Would it really make a difference? What is your take on that?
Try it. Try it and see if it makes a difference.
Yeah.
You can't lose anything. My wife is a very avid gardener, and she believes if she sends good energy to the plants will grow better. Her plants grow wonderfully.
Yeah.
And people say, "You're very lucky. You have a green thumb." Do you know this expression? You have a green thumb.
Yeah.
I don't think her thumb is green, but I think because she cares and expresses those energies, it makes things grow.
Yeah.
And we can't lose in that occasion. All we have to do is try and see the kind of difference that it makes. In my career, I've studied science, I've studied ecology, I've looked at all of these things. And it's important to do that. From a sociology perspective, I've spent a lot of time looking at the power structures of society and how do we analyze those and try to change those. And that's important work to do. It's valuable work to do. But I learned a number of years ago that by itself is not going to make the shift. Because that by itself is only going to give us a world that has basic structures that are different.
Yeah.
What we need to do is instill in everything the kind of values we want to have in the world.
Yeah.
So if we want to have a peaceful ecosystem and a cushy, happy ecosystem, we need to bring all that energy into the world in everything we do. And if we're going to walk a kilometer or 100 kilometers or 10,000 kilometers like these walkers, do it with joy, do it with peace, do it because we care about what we're doing and we're bringing our heart and our spirit into that. It's not that we're angry and we're blaming people and we want things to change and we're anxious about the climate crisis. It's a totally different way of looking at it, and I think that can make a difference. Maybe it's not for everyone, but that's their choice. And if they find it hard to make, try it. It might be easier than they think.
Yes, indeed. David, that is something for everybody to experiment and see if it works for themselves or not. And I do not know how many of us would be able to take that up as a challenge, but there's nothing wrong in experiment. And experiment is a way that we have learned science.
Exactly.
So if you really want to see if it works, so why not experiment with it? On the last note, if there is something that you would want to tell our viewers out there, what would be one thing that they could do to bring about a change, or to become a change maker, or to just create a better world? How could they start?
I think we live at a time in the world that's a very, very critical time. And everyone needs to bring the best of who they are to the world. And that's different for everyone. So for people to find what is the thing that they can share that will bring energy and joy and peace to the world, and recognize that the land and the water we live within is the only thing that's going to help us live into the future. So if they can connect that power they have with the stewardship of our world, the world will change.
Very beautifully said, David. I especially appreciate the word stewardship. It's something that gives you a different perspective about how you look at the world. Most of us take the earth for granted. We think that this is our property, but when you see it that you're just a custodian of something which is very precious and safe, is something that you have to keep it, then the whole perspective changes. The whole way of how you look at things changes. And many of our friends who are watching the show would resonate with this idea. Somewhere inside they would feel that yes, this is something that we had, and this is where we need to return. Thank you for sharing that insights. Made me thankful about what I have in my life, the things that I take it for granted, that the water that I have, the fruits that I eat, the food that comes in. I just thought that, you would just buy it and you pay for it, but there's nature that provides it. And I'm thanking you for giving me that perspective. And from the talks that we have had, many of our friends would have taken different things. For everyone is a different individual. Every person has his or her own speciality, and they would appreciate something that strikes a chord with them. Thank you for taking time out and sharing those insights with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Friends, that was this episode of Eco Shanti. What I can do is a question that I need to ask myself. Of course, there is a lot more that we can all do with the capacity that we have. We have the power to bring about a change. We can all be the change makers, only if you're ready to make that choice. Thank you very much. We'll see you again